Hi, I'm Jennifer McGuire and welcome to About Seafood. Today I am so excited to be here with Gretchen Brown. Gretchen studied nutrition at Baylor University in Texas as well as Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. Her love of cooking led her into a test kitchen apron instead of a clinical white coat. And now Gretchen is a well-known professional recipe developer, experienced food stylist, and cookbook author. She also runs the gorgeous Kumquat blog, where she features beautiful, easy-to-prepare recipes that are also gluten-free. Gretchen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So we both have sort of a non-traditional approach to teaching about food and nutrition. I work in the communication space, and you went straight for the test kitchen. You do a lot of cooking and food photography. Tell me a little bit about why you chose that path.
I actually call myself a culinary dietitian because, like you, I have never worked in the clinical dietetic space. And I have always loved being in the kitchen, and I like to share recipes and the love of eating and eating healthy food with people who need to hear it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right?
Absolutely.
Actually getting in the kitchen and preparing these foods. Even if you know what to eat, the knowledge of how and how to do it for your own family is a different ballgame.
And if we aren't eating something that's delicious, even if we know we're supposed to eat something healthy, then we're not going to want to eat it. So I love the opportunity to teach people how to make delicious food that's also good for them. And that's really where my passion was.
So tell me a little bit about your own family and kind of the dynamic there, your kids, their ages, and what kind of eaters they are.
I have a son who's 11, and he is getting into the teen space where he's become a little pickier. I have a 7-year-old daughter who's the best eater. She craves broccoli and snap peas and bananas. And then I have a 4-year-old daughter who is very picky. So I do kind of have a lot of different eaters in my house.
So Gretchen, you have 3 kids as well as a husband in the military, and you certainly know firsthand the challenges of trying to get dinner on the table, especially even sometimes when you're the only one at the helm. What tips do you have for families who are in the same boat as you?
Well, many people have a lot of success with meal planning and menu planning at the beginning of the week. And some people really like to have that organization in place. But for some people, it's just too much of a stressor and they can't get it all together. I am one of those people. So what I can do is have healthy foods in my pantry, in my fridge, and stock my fridge full of healthy proteins like fish, and fruits and vegetables, and simple whole grains like rice. Because in a perfect world, I would have a different variety of meals for my children every single night. But sometimes when you have a busy schedule, and maybe you're a single parent, having a meal on the table that's healthy that you know your children will eat is really the most important thing. If that's a one-pan meal of roasted fish with some fresh vegetables and maybe potatoes that you know your children will eat, I call it a win.
Could you explain what gluten is and why you choose to focus on gluten-free recipes on Kumquat blog?
Gluten is a really small protein that is found in wheat and rye and barley and some other grains too, but it causes a lot of big problems for some people who have celiac disease, some autoimmune diseases, and gluten sensitivity. About 13 years ago, I realized that it was wreaking a lot of havoc on my health, and so I decided that I needed to commit to a gluten-free lifestyle in order to live a thriving life.
Okay, and do you know, we've seen so much information about gluten-free living in the media, and we see it more frequently on menus. Do you know sort of what the rise in our awareness of gluten and some of its effects on certain people is related to?
I think we're really at the cusp of understanding a lot of that. I can tell you that 1 in 100 people have celiac disease, and those numbers are rising with our understanding of gluten sensitivity. We've come a really long way in the products that are out on the market right now in the 13 years that I have been gluten-free, and I appreciate that the awareness has increased the quality of products that I can consume too.
Yeah, it makes your life a little bit easier to live, I can imagine.
Much more delicious.
Yeah.
Sure.
So seafood, of course, is gluten-free in its natural form. Tell me a little bit about how seafood fits into a gluten-free lifestyle.
So seafood is not only naturally gluten-free, but it's also really one of the simplest proteins to incorporate into a variety of cultural dishes and different flavors.
Is there anything that seafood lovers who avoid gluten should be aware of?
Seafood, as we said, is naturally gluten-free, but there are some preparations for seafood that do contain gluten. So if there's something that's battered and fried, it contains gluten. If there's breadcrumbs, like in a crab cake, it will have gluten as well. Also, sushi, if it has something with soy sauce contains wheat, and so therefore contains gluten. But there is a gluten-free option called tamari that can always be requested or used.
Okay, and what about gluten-free breading or batter? Is that available too?
There are alternatives to eat gluten-free even in some of these preparations that are typically containing gluten. You can make your own with gluten-free flours. There are some fish sticks that can also be gluten-free, and you can also buy some breadcrumbs that are gluten-free if you want to make your own crab cakes.
So just to summarize, seafood is gluten-free. It's really just some of the toppings and the sauces that you need to watch out for, and people who are following a gluten-free diet can even find alternatives for those.
Absolutely. It is gluten-free, it is easy to prepare, and it blends into so many different cultural dishes.
So one of your many skills is recipe development, and there's probably a lot more that goes into crafting a recipe than people would think. Tell us a little bit about how that works behind the scenes.
Well, straight out of my dietetic internship, I ended up in the test kitchens for Southern Living and Cooking Light magazines. So I learned there, I cut my teeth there on how to develop recipes by testing recipes every day, working with really talented editors, and working with food styling as well. So I learned that what makes a great recipe is something that's easy to do, something that you know is going to work, and something that is delicious and you'll look forward to eating.
And what are some examples of seafood recipes that meet those criteria? What are some of your favorites?
Well, like we said, seafood is really great for taking on different flavors. So I love to incorporate sauces, maybe even just simple brown butter and some lemon. And it cooks so quickly, it's an easy protein to cook. I have a fish piccata that I love to make. It's super simple in a saute pan with just a little bit of sauce and some capers and butter and lemon. I also have a salmon recipe with some asparagus that you just stick in the oven all together on a sheet pan, and it comes out perfectly. I'm really the biggest fan of fish recipes that don't require a lot of effort, but they're simple and they have delicious flavors because fish brings with it so many delicious flavors too.
Yeah, with fish you can almost sort of just have a template, like a piece of fish and some vegetables in a foil pack, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a formal recipe, I've found, and you can sort of customize it to whatever you have.
Salt, pepper, lemon, and olive oil, and I think you can make any fish delicious.
Yes. So the dietary guidelines recommend that Americans eat seafood 2 to 3 times each week. But unfortunately, seafood, kind of like fruits and vegetables, is just one of those foods that people are working to get on the table more frequently to meet that recommendation. They're not quite there yet. In the research that we've done, we've found really one of the biggest barriers is people just aren't comfortable preparing seafood. And as someone who has so much culinary and recipe development experience, what are some tips that you might have for people who are intimidated to cook fish?
Well, I would say start at the grocery store. Don't be afraid to talk to the fishmonger that's behind the seafood counter in your grocery store. They are a wealth of knowledge. They're great about recommending fish for different dishes. They're also great about making alternative recommendations if the fish that you're looking for wasn't there in the case that day. And don't be afraid. It's easy to prepare and it's gonna be good whatever you do. So just be brave and give it a try, and maybe you'll find something new that you really love.
And what about types of fish? Are there some that are more suitable for beginners that you can think of?
Yes, I would recommend maybe a white fish that's a little more mild in flavor, like a grouper or a tilapia, maybe a snapper, or shrimp. Shrimp is another great one that's really easy to prepare. A lot of times it's even already cooked for you in the frozen section, so all you have to do is bring it home and thaw it and throw it into your favorite dish. So something that's a little milder in flavor if you're new to fish might be the best way to start. There's a lot of fish that are available in your freezer section, and sometimes they even have a convenient recipe right there on the packaging of the fish that gives you the recipe to make it that night.
Yeah, so that would be a good option if there's not a fishmonger right there.
Right.
You can get that information right on the package.
That's right. And also don't be afraid to turn to canned fish or pouched fish. They have really wonderful flavors right now that they've already even incorporated into the pouches.
Yep, and I really love those options because you don't have to use them right away, so you just have that option waiting for you.
Yes, it is a definite time saver.
What really strikes me about your blog is how delicious your recipes look. You're known as the original dietitian, food photographer, and stylist. Do you find that the way a food is presented, the way it looks, will kind of inform whether or not someone eats it?
I absolutely think it has an impact. Maybe you've heard the term that first we eat with our eyes. There's an Oxford professor of experimental psychology named Charles Spence who said that people's perception is driven by what their eyes see. So when we see food, our eyes actually tell our brains through a series of natural and learned cues what that food is supposed to taste like. So that's where it comes in with the mouth watering and the stomach growling. It's a very powerful tool, both online and in print editorial, and also just in person, that our food looks delicious on the plate.
Yeah, and I think, that's something that maybe moms and dads who are preparing food for their kids might not think of, is a little trick or tip for how to make it look better when they set it on the table. Something easy. We're not going to go to the lengths of, a food photography shoot, but does anything come to mind, just little things that parents can do at home?
Well, seafood, if you think about it, is actually kind of a neutral color. And our eyes really love to see color on a plate and different shapes. So if you can think of incorporating some sort of color with your seafood, whether it's a beautiful colored sauce or it's even just some simple parsley, even just lemon slices can make seafood look really beautiful and enticing.
Yeah, and then the flavor, of course, as well, once you get to eating it.
And the more colors you have on the plate actually also ensures that you have more nutrients on your plate too, so it's a win-win.
Yep. You co-founded an annual event, Blog Brûlée, that brings together some of the top dietitian bloggers from the country and mentors them and educates them. There are so many people out there providing nutrition information to both consumers and also healthcare professionals use the internet and blogs to get nutrition information. How is someone supposed to parse out what is sound and science-based and what's not?
So registered dietitians, RDs, or registered dietitian nutritionists, RDN, are credentialed nutrition experts. You can be sure that these are the folks who have spent years learning the nutrition information and science.
So looking for those credentials behind the author's name.
That's right. All of us have our own genetic makeup and our own nutrition needs, and I think that dietitians can really help work with people to be able to figure out what those are specific to each person.
One example that one size doesn't fit all is, of course, your own experience with finding out that you and your genetic makeup is intolerant to gluten.
That's right. I think that's a great example of how one size does not fit all. So if people are experiencing symptoms or they don't feel good after they eat specific foods, then I think it's really important that they go talk to their doctor or talk to a dietitian to figure out if maybe this is a food that they just don't need to be eating.
Mm-hmm. So there's limitations to how much information we can get online in terms of nutrition information. At some point you do have to take it into real life with a healthcare professional.
Absolutely. I think eating whole, real foods is a good across-the-board answer for everybody. But I think specifically if you're seeing that foods are causing you problems, then that's time to go talk to a medical professional.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So registered dietitians, like doctors and other medical professionals, have to get continuing education. So that's what we do at Blog Brûlée, is we offer continuing education for these top-level online dietitians. We hope that we are increasing their game of getting their photography and their recipes and all of the information that they have online to the place that the audiences can reach them and can learn from them, and that's our goal at Blog Brûlée.
Yeah. Well, we know that you are a source of sound nutrition information. Can you tell us where our viewers can find more information about leading a gluten-free lifestyle and all of your mouth-watering recipes?
Yes. So my blog is Kumquat, and you can find it at kumquatblog.com. There I post exclusively gluten-free recipes, a lot of baked goods that are delicious and gluten-free and grain-free as well. And then I have an Instagram at kumquatblog, and also on Facebook as well at kumquatblog. Also, I have a cookbook that I published a few years ago, Fast and Simple Gluten-Free, can be found on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com and anywhere that you like to buy your books.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. That was so informational. I think for registered dietitians and consumers alike, we all learned a little something about a gluten-free lifestyle, and I know that the recipes on your blog are perfect for people whether they eat gluten-free or not. So I look forward to checking those out. And thank you so much for following along. We encourage you to subscribe if you want to hear more interviews like this. Also, please like and comment below.